Call the Monday, January 27th, 2025 meeting at the Bethlehem Township Planning Board of Orders, 7:33 p.m. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in accordance with section 3D of chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, commonly known as the Sunshine Law. Roll call, please.
I'm here, and just if you indulge, I know this is a very important topic for our members of our community. I apologize I'm not there in person, but do have walking pneumonia, and my physician said I'm still very contagious. So I do want to be present, but also want to be prudent for everyone else's health.
Here.
Jose Reyes.
Here.
Judy Nelson. Here. Ken Shalai.
Here.
Grace Ann Kelly. Here. Philip Bellin.
Here.
Ryan Messinger.
Here.
Jose Maderos.
Here.
Brad Nelson.
Here.
Jeff Coletti. Steve DiLorenzo.
Here.
Daniel McDonald.
Here.
Scott Wilhelm.
Present.
Michael Davis.
Here.
Tom Decker.
Please rise for the pledge.
The United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Open the public for public comment on the agenda items, please.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, agenda items, and I ask that if there's anything specific to the master plan consistency component, to hold any comments until we get to there, we will open and listen to those individually.
Jim Wilder for 24 Charleston Road. I think you answered my question. So I know it's not a public hearing, but you will open it to the public on that vote specifically. People don't have to wait to the public comments at the end.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Other comments on the agenda items?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We have 497, 2025, with master plan consistency review.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. As you know, the ordinance that's in front of us tonight contains rezoning of multiple properties in town, including a property that is adjacent to my home. I feel like it will be like a conflict of interest for me to participate in the discussion and vote. I am recused.
Steve, thank you. Okay.
And I'll be recusing myself as well, and from the discussion and the vote.
So, a couple comments just to bring everybody up to speed.
Just for doing that, so you have 3 recusals and you do have 2 alternates today, and then just a big consideration of voting.
And one. Donald's.
Oh, right, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. You did my.
All right, so the couple of comments of, where we've come to get to where we are now, because again, we have a bunch of people out in the audience and we've there's a lot of comments that are made. We had, roughly going on 7 years ago, we had an application that was put in front of this board that we were at common school for almost a year. Listening to testimony, listening to residents' concerns. And I will make it very, very quick, but after that, roughly a year of testimony and discussions, this board and most of the members here are actually still members here, voted. And a result issue was then, a decision was made. Right, that applicant at that point, determined that he appealed that decision that this board made. Okay? Went to court and we lost. All right, we then came back as a board and with public comment, we decided to appeal that decision. All right, that took significant resources. The town paid a rather large legal bill, but we did appeal that decision. All right, that decision then went to an appellate judge who we basically came out with a wash. We won and lost. But what that judge did tell us was we need to make a decision, work with the other side and come up with a settlement agreement. Something that everybody can kind of live with. There's gonna be winners and there's gonna be losers. But again, this was judge ordered, this was court ordered. So we then have come forward with, our township committee, is in charge of coming up with a settlement agreement. That's nothing that we have here to do, okay? We have no say about any of those components. What we do have say about is, a site plan, which will eventually come back in front of this board and conditions for said application. All right. But in the midst of this, certain decisions and certain changes have to be made, again, based on a settlement agreement. All right. So when we hear about, people not caring about town, about this town or anything else, that's not what it is. Every single board member up here puts in a lot of time, and every single person who cares about any of these decisions. Sometimes we have a bad decision or we have a worse decision. And we need to, make the best decision possible for the town as a whole. We roughly had 300 people at Connell School over that year, every 2 weeks. There's 3,300 people roughly that are in this town. So, if we had 10%, we had 10%. A lot of people don't care. They might be on the other side of town and other people care a lot. We understand that, but in no way does anybody here not, care about any of these decisions which were made. We do think about things, as deep as possible, but this did go in front of the judge. And there's no path for us to have nothing happen. We tried that. We appealed it, but there is no path for nothing to happen on that property. So I don't know if you guys want to make any other comments.
I will just very briefly say, as the new attorney, I was able to review everything and try to get up to speed, and just want to remind the board members here today that you have a limited role. Your role is to accept this referral from the township committee that was sent to you. You have an obligation to consider it, and then your obligation is set forth in the municipal land use statutes, which say that you must consider it, determine whether it's inconsistent with the master plan, and then report back. And comment later, you can say it's consistent, you can say it's inconsistent, you can take no position, you can ask for further investigation, but you're going to rely upon the planner, who's the expert here, who has in fact provided you with a report. So that'll all be debated tonight, but just so the public's aware, this board does not decide whether any type of settlement is appropriate. That's a matter for the governing body. The municipal land use law gives the land use board limited jurisdiction. You can only do certain things and is required to do a number of things. And one of the things they are required to do they must consider a proposed ordinance that is sent to them by the township. That was sent on January 16th, so they must consider it in accordance with NJS 40:55P-26. That's what they're undertaking. That's what they're going to discuss today with the assistance of the planner. So that's all I would say. Just remind the board members what their role is tonight, and then to educate the public in that regard.
Thank you. Any other board members, any comments?
I'd just like to say that, this is the book that we have to follow. These are the rules that we're told that we have to follow. We all have to take courses on this book so that we do what's right. And if we don't do what's right here, then we set the town up to be sued and to lose. That's all there is to it. The laws have to be followed. We'd all like to say, no, nothing's gonna go in here. But we can't. We can't say that, just like we can't say to somebody who wants to build a deck on their house. Nope, we don't just don't like your house. We don't think that you should have a deck. We can't do that. We have to consider anything that's proposed. I think that what we are at now, as far as the lawsuits that have come down, we did say on the first decision that the concrete batch plants had been abandoned. And, that was held up. So there will not be concrete batch plants, which is something that I think that everybody whose neighbors would have been most offended by. There's not gonna be any tire recycling. There's not gonna be any toxic waste dumps. There's not gonna be a lot of the things that you saw signs all over town about. There's not gonna be. The things that we're hoping that might end up being there are things that are more appropriate along the highway and next to residences. We hope that we can include enough of a buffer so that it doesn't affect residences as much. We know that everybody lives around us, and there's nothing that we can do to change that. But as Mr. Cholet said, the option of nothing there is not on the table. We just can't do that. So, if we say that whatever Mr. Manini brings to this board is no good, we're not accepting it, then it's just gonna go back to the judge, and the judge is gonna look at it and he's gonna say, you're not cooperating with this applicant, so I'm gonna make the decisions, and he doesn't care. We care. We live in this town. He doesn't care. So he's just gonna follow the law. And that's what we're gonna try and do, is follow the law and protect the people in this town as much as we possibly can.
Having said that, we can't make any changes, but can we make some conditions or some suggestions, such as, there's a buffer zone.
We can make recommendations.
Okay, what's in that buffer zone? Because it's not just one property that's been affected. It's at least 7 to 9, depending what you read, properties are affected. And we should be able to at least help those residents or neighbors that feel they should have some sort of help in overcoming whether it's good or bad, what may be placed in those new lodging zones.
So the direct answer is yes, you can go back and say, you make certain recommendations to change the ordinance in whatever manner you propose. I would just remind everybody, though, let's not talk about hypothetical site plan applications. Let's not prejudge anything. There is no site plan application here, so let's not think about that. Probably appropriate for the planner to summarize and then take it from there.
So, board, I believe you were in receipt of my January 27th review memo, outlining a summary of the proposed ordinances and their consistency. As Mr. Wilhelm discussed, that is what the board is tasked with doing tonight, is reviewing the proposed ordinances that have been referred from the township committee, for consistency with the master plan. A lot of this stuff, as you will know, has been recently discussed in the last re-exam last year, and land use element last year. So, Some of these things probably aren't too surprising, but, generally the recommendations within the reexamination report, discuss evaluating commercial zones and updating to include additional uses to spur economic development in the township. The master plan re-exam discusses resolution of split zone lots, which we all have discussed recently, as well as evaluating buffer requirements between residential and non-residential uses. These are all recommendations and goals that are in that re-exam report. And then as far as the land use element, a little bit more specific goals related to these ordinances, amending the highway commercial district to support additional uses, including contractors, office, storage yard, truck and equipment service and repair, and accessory and parking of storage and vehicles and equipment, increased buffering standards, and amending split zoning, which is kind of an overlap from the re-exam. Both documents contain recommendations as far as that. So, additionally, the rezonings that are proposed were included in the land use element report. So, if there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Yeah, and
Yeah, or comments or anything.
so I just have one question about the ordinance. So, do we have a block 300?
Yeah, it's a weird, so it's like a round right of way.
Yeah, it's a right of way for the railroad.
Yeah, yeah.
So where would there be a separate lot 3?
I don't know how that block got created, honestly.
I can't find it. That's the biggest problem.
Yeah, I mean, we can, it's come up on tax records that I've seen. Monica, you haven't looked at it.
So I looked into it today, Tom and I looked for it, and on the zoning map, when you zoom all the way in, you can see there's a little sliver, that's the 300 separate. So it's there, and it's either New Jersey Transit, it's a train company lot. And that's why it's not typically in the tax lot.
Okay.
That's why it didn't come up. Michael, you want to mention the
Oh,
the
yes,
type?
yes, so there was, just as a note, there was a typo in the ordinance. And I just want to call that out really quickly. Under section 3, it indicates block 14, lot 8 to be rezoned to the R1.5. That should say block 14, lot 8. And that was clerical error.
Mr. Davis, can you maybe explain your alternative, please?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so, generally, the ordinances as proposed can be found, they're not inconsistent with the adopted master plan re-exam and the land use element that were recently adopted last year. There's generally consistent throughout with the policy.
Just so the public understands, the board doesn't have to make a finding that they're consistent, but the question is whether they are not inconsistent.
I'd like to get public and get public comment on this.
I just want to make one quick comment and confirmation that none of these properties are in the Highlands planning area, correct?
Correct, they're all preservation areas.
I just want to reinforce that.
And the island policies are still
Are still
in
effective.
effect, and all those requirements and regulations are still in effect for these properties.
Yeah.
Any motion to public comment?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Dan Wilder, 424 Charles County Road. I'm going to make a copy to Monica.
I appreciate it. I always.
Well, it's a lot of what I said, my comments on the land use element, that from last year. I do appreciate you explaining that this particular ordinance is because of the settlement. I will say that that's the first time you've ever said that in public, from what I remember. As an example, on August 12th, 2024, when we were discussing the land use element, it's policy only, recommendations only, nothing to do with anything but policy and recommendations only. So I appreciate that you seem to be a little bit more honest about what it's really about. So thank you. So that takes care of one of my comments. Why is this happening now? So you answered the question. It's because of the settlement. So as far as being inconsistent with the master plan, I believe it is inconsistent. The master plan reexamination report talks about being rural, protecting the environment. The highway commercial zone is supposed to serve the community and the traveling public. These additional uses are not even consistent with the purpose of a highway commercial region, let alone protecting the rural character of the township. Industrial uses only serve the private businesses. This is not serving the needs of the residents, nor is it consistent with the master plan. So then another part, you'd say that we're conformance with the Highlands. Well, from a statement from Corey Piaski, the Highlands Council liaison, generally speaking, any land use documents adopted by a municipality are subject to review by the Highlands Council for consistency with the regional master plan. Was this land use plan reviewed by the Highlands Council? I can tell you it was not. You were opening yourselves up to a lawsuit. You are not consistent with your own conformance of the Highlands Regional Master Plan. So it's not consistent with our local master plan. It's not consistent with the Highlands Regional Master Plan. Just a couple other things besides a typo of saying borough. And in the land use element itself, the final draft that I looked at, there was lot, whatever that was, the lot 8 versus lot 18. It was both in that land use element. So you guys need to really read what you're adopting. The other things I'm really just going to bring up in the public hearing, if it goes to the public hearing with the township committee. So I probably won't really bring it up, but you got my point. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Andrew Laffey, 3 Farrow Lane. I'd like to just continue on what Mr. Madero said, where there's no rock crushing, no noise, no peace and good order disturbances going on from block 34, lot 12. This is, in fact, not the case. What is the case is until after midnight, there are these operations going on from block 34, lot 12, which is a major problem. Not in terms of the DEP side, but in terms of the peace and good ordinance. And I'd like to refer the planning board back to about 1.5 years ago, when there was documentation provided in terms of footage, both aerial and video, with evidence that suggested peace and good ordinance was violated. And if you will go to the ordinance, you will see that the timing of the videos and the footage was outside of the range of normal operations. On top of that, there's a C1 stream to the Mahakaway that goes down from block 34, lot 12 into Spruce Run. And that C1 stream is Mahakaway. That provides 70% of the state with their drinking water because Spruce Run discharges to the South Branch, which goes to the main stem, where at American Water Works, 70% of the state gets their water. Because of discharge and DEP regulations, there's NJPSI's permits that were neglected. And at that point, right now, there's general construction DEP NJPSI's, which are not the same as the discharge permits that were previously the standard. So I'd like to bring the board's attention to these issues because there are peace and good ordinance issues going on. But on top of that, does Bethlehem Township want to be responsible for contaminating 70% of the state's drinking water? That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Good evening, Barbara Cochran, 507 Charlestown Road. I really don't think this ordinance is in conformity with the regional master plan. I would like to know what is the choice for not sending the land use element for review to the Highland Council? And I don't recall the Highland Council suggesting in the review of the regional master plan, a double use on highway commercial or encouraging truck equipment service and repair. Besides, you made, Chairman, you made a great summary of what the case was on block 34, lot 12, but the ordinance is including, it's not limited to only that lot. It includes all the adjacent lots, because you have lot 5 is where I think they're having, it's right on Mine Road, but you have 14, 16, and 30. They're all adjacent. So that is not, it's really not conforming to my opinion. Principal uses, they're just not. And I would like really to know why you didn't send the land use element for review. Thank you.
Teresa Conover, Kensington Court. I just want to start with a question. The planner, you said that, are you saying that in the ordinance, the section 3, is that what the one is wrong? Lot 14, it should be lot 18? So you're saying that you want to make Jugtown Campground into residential 1.5, that's what you're saying?
That's what was in the land use element.
I know, and I pointed out that I thought it was a mistake. But you're going with that, you're gonna make Jugtown Campground residential 1.5.
Well, hold on, he's not doing anything.
I'm just asking, if you said it was a typo.
Decide how the ordinance is passed, the township committee may take the ordinance and pass it as is, or they may modify it. Depending on, that's up to them, the planner's not doing anything, other than reporting to this board whether the accessory uses and the permitted uses are inconsistent with master plan and the existing township ordinances.
Okay, so, Mr. Planner, I'm just gonna ask you, you should go back and look at your element again, because the lot 8 is in there, lot 18 is in there, and it's a bit of a mess. So I think you need to straighten that out before you move forward with that. Okay, so my statement. These zoning changes are adding industrial uses to the highway commercial zone, and they are not consistent with what a highway commercial zone is. The purpose of a highway commercial zone is supposed to be businesses that serve the traveling public and the residents in the community. These industrial uses are only serving one property owner. As we have said before, there's only one property owner who requested these changes through his lawsuit settlement. No other property owner has asked for any of these changes. There was no letter of interest presented from anyone stating that if only the zoning was different, then they would be interested in opening a business on 173. In fact, High Power came to you and told you they didn't want their property rezoned, but you didn't care about that. You only cared about this satisfying the lawsuit. The tone of the master plan is to conserve and to protect the rural character of this town. Nowhere does the master plan indicate that the town wants to turn the 173 corridor into industrial or manufacturing corridor, but that is what this ordinance does. So it is not consistent. That is not what all of you said you wanted. The added uses, like storage of equipment and vehicles, will mean junkyards. The added addition of contractor office and storage yard will mean Class B rock crushing, which we've all heard already. And truck repair and storage of vehicles will be truck parking. The biggest impact will be the 2 largest acreage properties. Removing the mountain residential zone and changing it to all highway commercial on the 9-acre cornfield and the 52-acre former quarry will create hardships to every resident that has to live next to these new uses. Every resident that has to listen to rock crushing all day. Every resident that has to listen to trucks idling all night. In addition, the language in the ordinance around buffers is an empty gesture. No amount of bushes is going to eliminate the noise of these businesses. Your votes to allow these changes are in stark opposition to what the residents want, the residents who you are supposed to represent.
Any other comments? Comments from Zoom? The motion to close the public,
So
all in favor?
Aye.
Make some recommendations going back. So. From a legal standpoint. If we as a board find this completely not consistent with our master plan, would the township committee still be able to move forward?
Yes, the township committee is gonna do whatever they want. They're just required to refer this to the board. The board is required to undertake the review and determine whether it's not inconsistent. And then if it determines that it's inconsistent, can make recommendations, but the township committee is still gonna do whatever they do.
All right, so
So the first thing under 4055D26 is you have to find inconsistencies. If you find inconsistencies, then you can make recommendations. If you do not find any inconsistencies, then there's no recommendations.
when we discussed looking at the entire 173 corridor, early in discussion, first meeting, second meeting, from Moonsbury to the end of the township, where Jersey is. There's a host of different uses that are on 173, and they've been a host of different uses for a lot of years. There's been the various uses that we've described in there has been happening there for a lot of years. We've had outdoor storage, we've had contractors' trailers, we have truck repair, we have tire repair, we have restaurants, we have manufacturing, everything else. The significant amount of outdoor storage. Vehicle sales. So there's been a host of things that have been on 170, on 173 for a lot of years. We've been looking at when we were discussing this, we wanted some sort of resemblance of the power to regulate some of this. All right, there's been some changes over the years, down by the park, down on the Bloomsbury side. So all up and down on 73. So this gave us a way of addressing that. One of the big concerns was buffering that we always did have. Bringing split zone lots into conformance has been discussed by this board for many years. So that has been discussed. This is where this came to actual fruition. Doing that, you have to, naturally make sure that we do have the buffering that as Jose Reyes had alluded to earlier. We do need to verify and make sure that we have significant buffering. So in this ordinance, it came up with hundred and fifty feet. What is everyone's opinion on that, with whether or not that was what we felt when we passed the plan for this?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to clarify a question because not what the board felt. The question is, this is what's proposed by the township. Is it inconsistent with the master plan? So that's the question.
I think at this point, what we feel comfortable with is just kind of discussing whether or not we're comfortable with these buffers as they are. And, you know, frankly, I'm not comfortable. I mean, when I spoke about this as a planning tool, which is what we talked about this as, we said that we could determine what that buffer would be. And my thinking would be more along the lines of 300 feet rather than 150 feet. And I think that, you know, I was talking to Jeff Coletti during that discussion, and I was pretty adamant that we could determine that. And 150 feet to me does not seem like what we determined in that master plan element. I don't know that there was any specific number in there. But if we had put a specific number in there, it would have been more along the lines of 300 feet rather than 150 feet. And it's basically, you know, if that says that this is not consistent, then that's what I would base that on. So I would make a recommendation, and I think that, you know, what we said here in this is that we're able to identify any potential inconsistencies with the town master plan and provide a report to the governing body with any recommendations pertaining to the inconsistencies or other matters. So that's where I'm coming from here, is that I think that that's an inconsistency. And I think that my recommendation to the township committee would be to change the 150 feet to residential A to 300 feet. I think that would alleviate my concern.
That's just for over 5 acres.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing that seems to be changed. That's the only thing that's like here. I think the board should discuss that, whether or not anybody else agrees with it.
I'm in agreement that my expectation was a higher number than 150 feet as a buffer as well. Being familiar with quarry operations and industrial operations in my profession, 150 feet is small. 250 to 300 feet would be something that I would say, in my opinion, is standard. So I'd support 300 feet as well.
I would agree with that. We need that in residential. Besides the 300, we need to. This is unto itself, is not a buffer. With some of the noises that may or may not occur. Vegetation, trees, something that will absorb some of that noise needs to be part of this, and it doesn't show anywhere that this is part of that, but definitely 300 is better than 150.
So,
I agree with that. What's it on the smaller ones?
anything under 5 is 100. Under 5 acres, be 100. Great.
So anything more than 5, is that what you're saying?
And anything over 5 acres would be 300 foot buffer to the residential units.
Well, but just to be clear, too, if I'm reading this right, it's only if the proposed use of that lot is industrial.
Correct.
Is that, that was gonna be my question, yeah, is that what would happen? We can make that recommendation. This is a question for our attorney. We can make that recommendation for 300. So then we're saying that it is inconsistent. We're saying
Partially, that's.
partially, how would we work? Because I must say, I don't find this, not inconsistent with our, master
So
plan.
generally, you would authorize me to report back to the committee. Hypothetically, it is generally not inconsistent, however, there's one or two or three. things.
Okay. So as long as it's stipulated with the industrial, then yes, because 300 for other uses is pretty prohibitive. And no, fine.
Right.
Board's recommendation.
Hey, I was just trying to. So there's two other rocks. So block 34, lot 5 is 9.5, I believe. 34, 16 is 12, and 34 is exactly 5. Oh, yeah, no, I mean, that is valid response. We didn't really talk specific on what that number was going to be. Yeah, it was just a recommendation, so I think that this is valuable, but I appreciate your feedback.
And if that will change, we will recommend 300, that would not change your overall opinion, is that correct?
Correct, yeah, there was no specific numbers in the master plan elements until, so, it's still kind of, this is not inconsistent.
So if we wanted to put other buffering, as Jose was alluding to, that would take place at the site plan level.
Yes, and there are a lot of additional requirements. I can show you the section after, I'll write it down and stick it over you. There's a lot of existing requirements within the ordinance already as far as what needs to be within that buffer. I think that's what you were kind of talking about earlier. There's a significant amount, so I can show you that later.
And Mike, another thing, one thing that was brought up was that this would allow for junkyards. We have something in there that specifically says that we can't have junkyards in town.
I believe there are prohibited uses.
Yes, and junkyard is one thing. So this would not allow any junkyard anywhere in the town.
Correct, yeah, junkyards, automobile wrecking, disassembly yards, so it's sorting or baling of scrap metal, paper, rags, or other scrap waste material is specifically prohibited regularly.
Right, go ahead.
So they're going through with comments from 4 people that spoke. Again, noise is a big component of it. So although it's not part of what this is, again, a site plan will go into details about noise and about what the state allows, what the county allows. And, you know, methods of reporting any kind of noise concerns.
During a site plan, we'd be able to restrict hours of operation if a site plan were. approved.
Any sort of site plan work, we can, again, we can do buffering, we can do, hours, we can do a certain amount of uses. And again, I mean, you know, noise, because I mean, people are genuinely concerned about noise.
And we had,
It's a big thing,
and that
and
came up during.
and part of our discussion was, yes, you know, you want to be able to enjoy a weekend or, you know, your time after work and not have that, you know, we don't want to have things going on at midnight, and that's not what any of this is. Not what anybody in this town wants. So we're all cognizant of that.
You have a lot of discretion on the application specifically.
So, I don't know. And as far as concerns about what has happened in the past, just to explain, that's part of our zoning officer's responsibility. It's not part of this board to, you know, if somebody does something wrong. That's our zoning officer. We do have a new zoning officer for anybody that does not know. She has office hours.
Monday, 4 to 5:30. But she's responsive to email and voicemail when not in the office.
So you meet her in person, you can email her, or call and she'll call back about concerns. From what I understand, she's doing a very good job. So, without the voice concerns from, for anything forward. And the environmental concerns that we do have, again, environmentally speaking, that's the county and the state. Again, drinking water is important to everybody, naturally. We are in Highlands, we opted into the Highlands on basically just about every property in this town is all Highlands preserved. So we as a board, we as a town, that's what we wanted. So the other concern was Highlands approval. I'm doing 10 Highlands. Address. What did we get back? We got,
We did it
they
with
went over.
we did it with the exam. I don't recall the land use element, may not have gone. I don't remember it going. It would have, when the re-exam happened,
They got back to us really fast.
Suzanne sent it out and Corey got right back, like literally within hours for the master plan re-eval. But I don't know that we did it for the land use
That's a
element.
concern, we need to just verify.
Yeah, we can follow up that.
Or,
Actually, I think, maybe we could address Teresa's comments about section 3, that the injured towns. We should put it in right, have a number of that. Only the ones that can't, try to be our one. They do.
I think that would cover that, just a general recommendation to the township committee to review all these lots, because a couple of these, again, that block 300, I can't find that.
Yeah, I can put together a map for
Yeah.
the governing body that
Yeah.
kind of clearly identifies these specific.
And then,
lots.
yeah, and also, again, as Brad said, if that is Jugtown Mountain, campgrounds, certainly we don't want to change that to R1.5, I don't think. And there's another lot that I was looking at, that's a flag lot. That basically, just the entrance of it, touches on the highway, and then the rest of it is, I believe it's already residential, and like that's the machine shop. Not sure what it is. So if it's a machine shop, it's been there forever, and that's that flag lot, and that's, then obviously it makes sense that should go under this, but yeah, I just recommend a general review of all the lots that we're talking about, make sure that we're actually looking at the lots that we want to do.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? All right, so I'd like to,
So I think it would be appropriate if somebody wanted to make a motion, authorize me to report back to the township attorney, who referred this matter to the board as to whether, this board finds it to be not to be inconsistent. And what I understanding is that based upon Mr. Davis's work and the public comments and the debate today here, you're finding generally it's not inconsistent. If you would like, you are recommending the buffer zone for residential A there be 300 feet, and you're seeking clarification in sections 2, 3, and 4 to make sure they have the right blocks and lots identified properly. Yeah, that would be your motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call.
If they recuse themselves, do I call and they have to say it?
They're not here.
Jose Reyes?
Well, with the changes that were proposed, I would say yes.
Judy Nelson?
Is abstained.
Excuse me.
Ken Shalay?
Yes.
Grace Ann Kelly?
Yes.
Philip Bellin?
Yes.
Ryan Messinger? Oh, sorry. Jose Maderos?
Yes.
Brad Nelson? Daniel McDonald?
Yes.
February sixth. The public hearing.
You'd like to open the public for general public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All right.
I have it.
No. No violence.
Barbara Cochran, 507 Charleston Road. The 173 corridor is in the Highland Preservation area. So you're proposing to join two zones in one zone and make them highway commercial, of course, not mountain residential. You're putting together mountain residential and highway commercial in one highway commercial. And you're allowing two uses to this new created lot. This is not conforming to the regional master. Thank you.
For Charlestown Road, regarding the lot 18, lot 8, Teresa and I brought that up this summer. Not sure why you didn't look at it. And as far as finding block 300, we all find it easily. You just look on the
Place on the map.
it is,
And
it is.
all points to railroad tracks.
If you search on the NJ Parcel interactive map or the Highlands interactive map, all you have to do is search for block 300 and then you go to tax data hub and the property owner is there. So it is
Who's
findable.
the property data? Who's the property?
Yes, there is.
Who's the property owner? New Jersey Transit.
Transit. Well, it is a block and lot.
And what it is a railroad.
I understand what it is, but your statement about you couldn't find it, that was a little
Because it's
bit,
so small that it's all part of a railroad track.
it is findable by block and lot. I just have a question. You're changing your recommendation to make it consistent is changing the buffer zone where the table that's being changed is saying industrial proposed use over greater than 5 acres. Where is industrial proposed use defined in our E-code ordinances or the master plan? It is not. So I don't understand how you can say, it sounds like I'm talking against what we're saying, but you can't say something's inconsistent with the master plan if it's not even defined in the master plan. And the other question is that table says proposed use. That's not a zone. A proposed use is a use of a particular property. So you're making that properties highway commercial. The table says, make your buffer that's over 5 acres of industrial proposed use. Is that the entire block and lot? Is that the use that you're building on? Where does the buffer start from? The property line or from where that building is? And I'll tell you right now, the property in question is definitely would not conform to the buffering right now. You just go to the parcel map that I found. They have aerial views from, I don't know, 2023, I think it was. And that you have a measuring stick and it's already within the 150 feet. So it just doesn't even make sense what that table even is saying at all. So I don't understand how it can be consistent or not consistent if it's not even defined very clearly. Thank you.
Lisa Conover, Kensington Court. And maybe this is not a statement for you, but you're saying, those uses were already existing on 173. So basically they were not allowed uses, but they were there, and that's why you wanted to include them so that you could regulate them. And by the way, we also have 2 junkyards already on 173. So it sounds like we have a zoning enforcement issue in this town. And I'm not sure I agree with this is the way to handle that, but like I said, I think it's probably a township committee statement. What I do want to say is that I am extremely disappointed in the fact that you're just now looking, where's lot 300? This was part of a land use element that you all approved. You were all supposed to look at every detail, at every property that you were making a recommendation for, and none of you looked. Nobody knew that Jugtown Campground was wrong. Nobody knew where 300 was. Like, what were you doing? Like, I would be embarrassed if I were you. I mean, if this was my job, I'd probably get fired. Like, I don't understand how you guys push this through without actually really looking at the details. It's really disappointing. Maybe from a legal standpoint, maybe it's arbitrary and capricious that you didn't actually really kind of dive in and really look. Nobody did a sidewalk. It's really disappointing.
I have a question, Jose. You actually might be the best person with your longevity involvement with the town. A lot of these properties, the uses, or talk about the uses on these properties actually predate some of our ordinances.
Exactly.
So a lot of these uses have been there before the original ordinances were put in place.
Yeah.
So I did review those. You know, I just wanted to confirm because you're an encyclopedia and it's kind of amazing. So yes, to answer your question, I did look at a lot of these. I actually did question the R1 way back when. I even asked Michael about it.
I don't remember you ever mentioning it. I don't remember anybody talking about it.
It was mentioned. But I just wanted to point that out, that yes, a lot of these uses predate. A lot of these are generational properties that go back generations to be redundant. So.
Andrew Laffey, 3 Farrow Lane. Mr. Schley, I'd just like to commend you on your logic, because the things that you've said in terms of what everyone here tonight has brought to your attention, you've taken down seriously, because the things that have been brought to your attention are real. We hear, see, smell, taste everything that goes on in our town. And we moved here so that we could be in a town that's away from the urban environment. We do not want to bring in the urban environment to the suburban environment. And we all pay our taxes and paid a lot of money to live here because of those things. So thank you.
Public comment? Anybody on Zoom? Make a motion to close the public.
So moved.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. We have a bunch of people here. I got a phone call from a concerned citizen over the weekend. Comments She was fuming that we were allowing a warehouse in our town. And, I said, as far as I know, we don't have a warehouse in our town. And so I said, I think you're mistaken. And I said, no, it's happening, it's on the military border. And I said, there's nothing that is in front of the town currently about a warehouse, and plus a concern that we had in our master plan review was we, as a town, don't want warehouses. So that's in our master plan. So, they sent me a listing. And it was a listing that was, I'm gonna say about a year old, but it was in Greenwich Township, and it's not the one that everybody had gone out and discussed and had the meetings for. This one was right on 173. Right over the bridge, past where, the Mac dealer is on the right at where basically exit 6 comes down, on the 173 side. So they would have had, access and driveway from 173. And it was roughly 276,000 square foot. And you can Google it and see what happens. So it's Greenwich Township, it's Warren County, it's on the other side of the river. It's, so different county, different town, it doesn't affect us directly. But, in a situation like that, the traffic does affect us directly. And, one of the big concerns, I think that we as a planning board hear all the time is traffic. And that's the case where, towns don't necessarily communicate the best. We have a, situation coming up in Union Township that everybody knows about. And I'd say everybody should get together and go to those meetings. The Greenwich Township meeting, I didn't hear anything about it until I saw this. Now it's knocked down as far as, I watched the meeting today. This was this was 2023, somewhere around October 2023. So you can watch the Greenwich Township meetings and the discussion about it. They had a very informal meeting. Township committee passed an ordinance and they did some work. But I tell you this because we do need to pay attention to also surrounding towns. Because, as, Andrew just brought up as far as, our quality of life here, warehouses definitely change that. I understand a lot of uses can change that, but, you go from a farm field to, a warehouse, that's a change. So, I know that, we as a, town have no say in Union Township. We have no say as far as Greenwich Township. But, we do need to pay attention to it and go to these meetings and at least make our voices heard. Earlier when I said we had 300 people of a town of 3,300, when something is active, we need to get half the town. Or in another town, we need to get, lots of people to get up and talk and make our point known. So. The minutes to go through. Monday, November 25th. Or the 24th.
Be quiet, please. We still have a meeting going on. Yeah.
Where you said I, where Mayor stole my report, which he does all the time. It's just, it's a thing.
Motion,
Great. Made a
a
motion.
motion to accept for November, Monday, November 2024, minutes as written.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Against? Abstention? Double I, 2023 minutes.
Make a motion to accept the December 9, 2024 minutes is first.
Second.
Favor? Aye. Against? Abstentions? Finally, the Monday, January 13th, 2025.
I'm gonna, for the planning board planner, I don't recall that I abstained. If your motion carries, he abstaining, I abstain.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I just have it's just a really minor typo, Barbara Cochran's name, it's COCH.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. February 10th. Everybody has any binders in front. Please leave the binders, please leave the pens. Okay.
Can we leave the pens in
We
the binder?
we don't want to leave,
Is that true?
we're gonna.
couldn't get this on. I listened, I heard you complain. I heard that. You guys weren't like impressed with the binders enough. I had to throw in a pen.
It's not given to the committee.
It's like, don't, it's not happening.
And I understand.
I have two suggestions, in case you weren't planning to already do this, but under the administrative documents, can we put our schedule in there, as well as the subcommittee members?
Okay. Well, in the front of your binder should be the
Yes,
committee
yes,
member.
in the front. Like that.
Oh, it is, I just thought it was.
I was saving paper.
Well, that's fine.
I could, that's what it doesn't do. I'm gonna make it.
All right, Mr. Mayor?
Nothing else to add this evening.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate, the new, zone hours is 4 to 5:30 on Monday nights. I know we've changed them around a lot, and we had to do that to accommodate our various professionals, but those are the new hours. 4 to 5:30 PM on Monday nights.
What's the name of the?
Ceremony,
Sarah?
9,
Nine?
yeah. think it's K-A-I-E-S. Don't quote me on that.
I'll send her an email as she's going through any of our ordinances. If we find something that's vastly in need of, you know, us looking at, that she could put that back together, that we can, now it's a different set of eyes, Tom's not there. The board members have anything? Mark, anything? You want anything?
No, all good. I'll get you over, I'll get this over tomorrow.
Yeah, Bill?
Second.
All okay?
Aye.
No public comments? We
That's
have
three.
public comment. Yeah.
Normally there's public comment.
No, we had public comment.
Still storing it.
Drop it, hold the order. You actually said something nice, and that was not what we got.